Dark Souls means a lot to me. Like, a lot to me. If you, for some reason, have not played Dark Souls, or maybe you've played it before and not finished it, I really recommend you go back and play it. Preferably the Prepared to Die edition over the remaster, but the remaster will do fine too. Dark Souls is a one-of-a-kind game, and if you ignore the unfinished second half, this might also be one of the best in FromSoft history. But that's not actually why I'm here. This video isn't about how good Dark Souls is. This is about something more important to me. This video is about what Dark Souls means to me and what it did to me. Without Dark Souls, I genuinely believe I would not be the person I am today. And that person would be a much worse person as well. But to understand what it did for me, I'm gonna have to talk about myself before Dark Souls. As a child, I moved around a lot, so I ended up growing more attached to video games than I did to real-life friends. That isn't to say I didn't have real-life friends. I made friends with neighborhood kids and kids from school, but I actually didn't get to keep any of those friends up until high school because I'd move away. I started off with the GameCube. I played SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom and Smash Melee. I also had Spyro, but I didn't really like it. And much like all kids in the early 2000s, I also had a Game Boy with Pokemon. And this is what I had for a very long time, up until I went to my grandmother's house on my dad's side. She had a really nice house with a refurbished basement, and there was an Xbox in the basement. I was a nice kid, and I was enjoying playing the Xbox with whatever games she had, and she asked me, "Do you want the Xbox?" And I said, yeah. Turns out it was for my cousin, but he was a little shit, apparently, so she gave it to me instead. Thank you, Grandma Eileen. Love you. And with my new Xbox, my mom took me to GameStop and told me I can pick any game I wanted. In retrospect, my mom probably watched the news, and she knew that Halo 2 was a really big, cool game, so she suggested Halo 2 to me. But having not played the first game, I said, I want Halo Combat Evolved instead, because I wouldn't know what was happening in Halo 2 if I didn't play Halo 1. I became enamored with Halo Combat Evolved. I thought it was an amazing game, unlike any games I had played before. If you fast forward a bit in time, I was now one of the many kids growing up playing Halo 3 in custom lobbies on the Xbox 360, some of the coolest moments of my gaming life. It was at this time that I was living in a new upcoming suburb in Ohio, a very nice neighborhood with brand new houses and lots of kids that I actually became friends with. And there was this neighbor right across the street from me named Rick, and he had like a daughter who was like 17, 18, and I was like 12 or 13 at the time. Rick was pretty cool, and at one point he invited me up into his house where he had his own custom-built gaming computer, and it had an open case with all the PC parts exposed, and it looked amazing. And he was playing Battlefield 2142, and he even let me play it too. I thought this game was amazing, and I ended up taking my mom's laptop and later getting my own PC to play it. I played some RuneScape, and I eventually bought a physical copy of Counter-Strike Source, and that led to diving into Garry's Mod. And this is where I started to play all sorts of things: roleplay servers, weird sandbox game modes, sled build, anything that came to mind. Looking back at it now, I played Garry's Mod during the golden years. And on a Death Run server, some guy thought I was a girl, and he ended up gifting me a copy of Dark Souls. I ended up playing Dark Souls with one of my longest time internet friends, Grud. This was the PC version, and running Games for Windows Live. More on this later. Dark Souls was quickly very frustrating for me, and I spent a lot of time in frustration trying to push through the jank and through the difficulty, not really understanding what I was doing, or improving, or exploring, like it was intended, much to Grud's dismay. I was really annoying and whiny about it. Up until this point, I played games that were very easy, most of which were shooters, and I really had no grounded approach to difficulty. It was this, combined with some childhood trauma that I won't speak of here, but in summary, I'm extremely hard on myself, and I didn't really like failure. I remember a specific moment where I was in Anne Orlando at the bottom of the first elevator, and I was waiting for Grud's summon sign, which was not working because of Games for Windows Live. If you don't know, Games for Windows Live is basically the Xbox 360 interface and connection service for PC games. And it is an unholy abomination of pure torment. Trying to operate this fucking thing is like being trapped in one of the inner circles of hell. Constantly trapped in a loop of being told you have to update, and then updating it only to be told you can't sign in because you have to update it. This is important because when trying to summon your friend's summon sign in the original Dark Souls Prepare to Die edition, you'd have to wait anywhere between 10 minutes to an hour for that summon sign to appear. And most of the time when it did appear, you'd be hit with a summoning failed message. So there I was, sitting at the bottom of the elevator, whining, complaining, bitching about it, because the elevator was making this horrible squeaking sound. And I had this moment, a really important moment. It was this moment of frustration boiling over when I decided to cheat. And I don't remember what exactly I cheated, but I decided to cheat, and I didn't want to work for it. Most of the game up until this point was me being carried by Grud or complaining. I probably just gave myself a billion souls to level up or something stupid like that, but regardless, I cheated. And I justified the cheating to myself, giving myself excuses or reasons why it was okay. And I played through the rest of Dark Souls all the way up until the end of the game, by myself, without Grud for the rest of it. And I killed Gwyn at the end, reaching the end of my playthrough. But something happened. I wasn't raised to be a cheater. I was just a little bit smart for a 14-year-old, and subconsciously I knew how to avoid having to get better at the game, and that was by cheating. I knew how programs worked, and I knew how to use Cheat Engine. For those of you who don't know, back in Gary's mod, most add-ons or mods for Gary's mod use a code called Lua. And Lua is very fortunate because it's very easy to read and edit. Even at 13 or 14 years old, I would edit Lua code to convince server owners that I knew how to code add-ons, and then they would give me admin on their server, which I would probably abuse because I was 14 years old. So I knew how to use Cheat Engine. And for those unfamiliar, Cheat Engine is more than just a cheating program, despite the name. It allows you to change bytes and data in any program. You could use this to mess with the calculator app if you wanted to. And I would mainly use Cheat Engine to get custom colors on a Flash game called Arcanists over on FunOrb, which was also hosted by the people who made RuneScape. Regardless, the feeling washed over me, and I'm sure some of you have felt this feeling before. Shame, embarrassment, like I had taken what isn't mine. See, back around Dark Souls' popularity, it was a cultural milestone or a rite of passage to beat Dark Souls. Dark Souls is so hard, you have to beat Dark Souls to be a real gamer, get good, and all that garbage. With it most often being compared to other big medieval games of the time, Skyrim, a notoriously easy game. So for me, I knew that beating Dark Souls meant things to people. And cheating my way to the end did not sit well with me. I felt guilty. So, with no one encouraging me except for myself, I went back and I tried again. And I made a new character, and I did it right, up until I leveled up the wrong stat, leaving my character unoptimized, wasteful. So, I made a new character, and halfway through the game, I did something similar, and I wasn't happy with my build, so I tried again, and again. It was not until my 8th character that I finally earned my victory and killed Gwyn. And unlike the first playthrough, I earned this one. But you know that phrase, it's about the journey, not the destination? That applies here too. Through my repeated characters, going through the game over and over again, I got better as a player. My mechanical skill rose through the roof. I became interested in the PvP. I was getting better, imposing restrictions on myself, like beating Ornstein and Smo without summoning Solaire or anyone else. Things like that. And it was this feeling that really sat well with me. I went from feeling ashamed of myself to feeling accomplished by putting in the work instead of cheating myself into a hollow victory. And I felt a drive from this moment on to be a better player in all games, and also found a disdain for cheating. I've been on both sides of the fence, and I never wanted to cheat again, and I still don't, because a hollow victory isn't really anything. Even with a small advantage, it's not really earned if you don't earn it. And this was a major change in me, and it was the pivoting point for my future. Despite my love for Dark Souls, it is not my favorite game ever. I could put it in a top 10 favorite games, but it's not my favorite. But the lessons Dark Souls taught me carried with me to the future, and more relevantly, impacted every single game taste I have now as a guy who plays games for a living. I am no longer satisfied with most shooters or things that aren't challenging or interesting to me mechanically. I don't like stale gameplay. It doesn't mean a game has to be action. I can still enjoy a game like Animal Crossing or some story-based game, but I can't enjoy Call of Duty or Battlefield or even more relevant shooters like Hunt Showdown, Tarkov, any of those. They just don't land with me anymore. And funny enough, A lot of those shooters are now infested with cheaters, so I guess I picked a good time to not care about them. I began to chase this feeling, and I began to grow very critical of many games I'd end up playing because of it. It was my love of Dark Souls that actually led me to Chivalry Medieval Warfare, and then to Mordhau, and then to Chivalry 2. I mean, I even play Chivalry like a Dark Souls player. Back in Chivalry 1, I actually played Longsword and Kite Shield. If you didn't know, in Chivalry 1, you can actually one-hand a longsword. To go on a little tangent about that, back in Chivalry 1, there's a thing called timed parry, which uses a timed block with a recovery period on a miss. Shields, however, can be raised and lowered however you see fit, but suffer stamina penalties, no riposte, and a really small block hitbox. And this is remarkably similar to how you'd mechanically use a shield in Dark Souls, where you block and then lower the shield to attack rather than get a counterattack. My Chivalry playstyle hinged on really tight attack timing, stamina management, and spacing, because the longsword is fucking huge. This playstyle is ultimately limited in the grand scheme of Chivalry, but I really enjoyed it. Without Dark Souls, I wouldn't be me. Many of my forefront personality traits are related to these thoughts and feelings, and eventually would lead me to be as passionate as I am about video games, to lead me to value game design, level design, and storytelling all so highly. Dark Souls makes me want to use my passion to create games, create levels, music. It's why I'm so into video games that it's practically an obsession. It's why I'm here today making this video. Why I want to make things. Why I stream all the time over on Twitch. I played a lot of video games as a kid, but it was Dark Souls that ignited my passion and set me on the path I am now. So even without Dark Souls being my favorite game, it was the catalyst and the largest stepping stone in my life as far as this stuff goes. It's just a video game, but it means so much to people and so much to me. And for me, video games are kind of my life as a chronically online Twitch streamer and disorganized YouTuber. Hidetaka Miyazaki puts passion into his games, which is why his games have brought From Software to the peak of their success, leading up to Elden Ring. His passion for games shines through like a beacon even now, shining through the mess that is the current gaming industry. Miyazaki even said, in response to the mass layoffs across the gaming industry, that as long as this company is my responsibility, I will not let this happen. I find people like Miyazaki to be inspiring, to be so driven, creative, and passionate, maintaining your integrity, your character, and your values, despite the years that have passed. To me, Miyazaki is someone I look up to, and I cherish these values highly. Dark Souls changed me. It made me, and it will live on in me for the rest of my life as one of the most defining moments, despite just being a video game. So thank you, Hidetaka Miyazaki. And thank you, the viewer, for watching. Like, comment, and all the things that the YouTube algorithm really likes. I make videos like this, which also have a Patreon page for this, and I stream all the time. And if you're worried about my upload schedule, I'm working on it. I promise. Stay tuned, and hopefully I'll make that happen. Love you guys. See you soon.